I've been driving a taxi in New York for over 10 years. I've heard plenty of ghost stories from fellow cab drivers, but as an atheist who believes in science, I always dismiss them as silly tales meant to scare each other. That is, until last week, when I met a strange woman who completely changed my mind. That night, I started my shift earlier than usual. My broken clock had me out on the road around 2 a.m. The streets were so empty I could hear my own heartbeat as I drove through the deserted avenues. To break the silence, I turned on the radio. The late-night announcer's voice droned between old jazz tunes and traffic updates. I caught a fragment. Anaram, flowers and candles still placed at the site of last week's fatal accident on the Williamsburg Bridge. A woman killed. I shivered. Williamsburg Bridge. The very route I was heading toward. An unpleasant coincidence, like the radio was warning me. I swallowed hard and turned the volume down, trying to ignore it, though my fingers tightened on the wheel. As I neared the bridge, I slowed down. At the corner stood a crooked wooden cross, barely upright. Around its base were wilted flowers, rain-soaked trinkets, and photographs blurred from water damage. On the sidewalk, small candles flickered, their flames trembling in the damp night, but stubbornly refusing to die out. The air there felt heavy, as if a veil of mist hung only over that spot. The street, usually loud and chaotic by day, was unnervingly silent. In the distance, streetlights flickered erratically, their pale yellow glow casting long, distorted shadows. I stopped at a red light, eyelids heavy with fatigue. But then another sensation crept in, like dozens of unseen eyes peering at me from the darkness along the curb. A chill crawled down my spine, jolting me wide awake. And then I felt it, an unnatural cold pressing against the back of my neck, as if someone were staring right through me. I checked the rearview mirror. The back seat was empty, but on the curb beside the candles stood a woman. She wore a long, tattered dress from another era. Her skin was pale, her hair loose over her shoulders. She looked straight at me, lips curling into a smile. I held my breath and fixed my eyes forward, waiting for the light to turn green. Suddenly, a voice rang inside my head, not outside, not through the glass, but inside. "Driver, are you going across the bridge? Give me a ride." I jerked around. She was right there, beside the passenger door, close enough to touch the handle. In that instant, my whole body trembled, but something deeper, an ancient, primal instinct, screamed at me, "Do not let her in." I didn't know why, but I was certain that if I agreed, something terrible would happen to me. I stammered, I, I'm not going that way." "Is that so?" Her voice trailed off, cold and lingering. When I looked again, she was back by the candles, as if she had never moved. Those 15 seconds at the red light stretched into an eternity. Then the roar of two motorbikes broke the silence, engines rattling as they pulled up behind me. Relief washed over me at the presence of someone else. I pointed toward the woman and asked one of the bikers, "Do you see her? She wants to cross the bridge." He looked, then turned back with a puzzled expression. "Are you crazy? There's no one there." I swallowed hard and glanced again. She was still there, still smiling, still nodding at me. I couldn't take it anymore. The light was still red, but I slammed the gas and sped onto the bridge. In the rearview mirror, just before the city vanished into darkness behind me, I saw her one last time, standing among the flickering candles, eyes black and endless, nodding slowly, that smile never leaving her face. My uncle has been a long-haul truck driver for decades. The job kept food on the table, but it also gave him countless stories from the road. Some of them were funny, some strange, but one of them still chills me to the bone. It happened years ago when he was driving along I-70 through the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. The road was treacherous, winding with steep cliffs, so a convoy of trucks and buses decided to stop halfway up the pass and wait until daylight to continue. One passenger bus pulled over first, and the others lined up behind it. In the middle of the night, a pregnant woman on the bus suddenly screamed awake, claiming she saw people outside trying to push the bus off the cliff. Everyone panicked for a moment, but then brushed it off as a nightmare. Slowly, they tried to go back to sleep. Not long after, there came a frantic knocking at the bus door. The attendant opened it, only to find a young boy, maybe 12 or 13, shivering in the cold in a worn-out jacket. The attendant asked why he was out there alone in the middle of the night. The boy stammered, "My house is down in the valley. My dog ran off tonight, and I went looking for him but couldn't find him. I must have dozed off near here. But when I woke up, I saw a group of people gathered around this bus, shouting, trying to push it toward the edge. I got scared, so I ran up and knocked to ask if I could sleep inside. The entire bus went silent. Everyone remembered what the pregnant woman had just dreamt about. The driver didn't hesitate. He started the engine and drove the bus over the pass immediately, not stopping until they reached the base of the mountain. By morning, they awoke to the sound of the police sirens. Word spread quickly. A passenger bus had gone over the cliff during the night. It was the very bus that had been parked right behind them. Shaken, the passengers on my uncle's bus later pooled their money to buy the boy a new puppy, and someone even took him on a short trip to Denver so he could see the big city for the first time. When my uncle finished telling me the story, he took a long drag of his cigarette and said with a half smile, "Some roads are dangerous because of cliffs and curves, other because of things we just don't have a name for." It was during storm season in the Rockies. That night, I had just finished a tour run from Denver to Salt Lake City. By the time I wrapped things up, it was nearly 8:45 p.m. The news warned that a powerful storm system would be hitting the mountain passes by morning. I had family matters waiting back home, and since I was traveling alone in my seven-seater SUV, I decided to risk it. Push through the night and make it back before the storm. Close to midnight, the rain came down hard, hammering the windshield, the wipers working at full speed. The highway was nearly empty, just me and the endless, black road winding through the Rockies. That's when I reached the base of Monarch Pass, and that's when the story begins. Through the sheets of rain, I spotted someone standing on the shoulder of the road, a lone figure wrapped in a rain poncho from head to toe, arm raised, waving for a ride. My first thought was, plenty of seats, no problem. But then the rule every long-haul driver knows flashed in my head. Never pick up hitchhikers in the middle of nowhere, not in the dead of night, not in a storm. So with a pang of guilt, I pressed the gas and drove past. The road kept climbing, twisting into the dark. The rain, the wind, the sense of being utterly alone. It all pressed down on me. That uneasy chill settled in. And then at the top of the pass, my headlights caught a figure again. The same rain poncho, the same raised hand, standing right by the guardrail. This time there was no guilt, only raw fear. My skin prickled, my hands clenched the wheel, and I floored the accelerator, flying past without a second glance. By the time I began descending toward the valley, I tried to calm myself. Just the storm, just my nerves, I told myself. But as I rounded a bend, my blood ran cold. There, at the base of the mountain, stood the figure again. The poncho dripping, the arm slowly raising to wave me down. That was the moment fear turned into terror. I gripped the small cross I kept on the dashboard, muttered a desperate prayer, and slammed the pedal to the floor, tearing out of that pass as if my life depended on it. After that night, I swore to myself, never again would I play hide and seek with a mountain road alone in the storm. Some figures are meant to be left standing by the roadside. Two of my friends from New York decided to fly down to Texas and buy two used SUVs they wanted to customize for an upcoming off-road hill climb event. Instead of shipping them back, they thought it would be fun to drive both cars all the way up north along the back highways. They left late in the afternoon, and by nightfall, they were exhausted. Instead of checking into a motel, they pulled over on a wide dirt pullout off a lonely stretch of Highway 281. Each reclined their seats, rolled the windows down just a crack, and tried to get some rest. One of them, a big tough guy who wasn't easily shaken, dozed off until he felt something brushing at his window. Half awake, he turned and saw a young man in a white shirt with black stripes trying to slip his hand through the crack in the glass to unlock the door. Instinctively, he swung his elbow hard, only to smash it against the door. The figure had vanished into thin air. His elbow swelled and bruised instantly. Shaken but not convinced, he rolled the window up and tried to sleep again. Minutes later, bang, 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 the sound of fists pounding violently on glass. He jerked awake and saw the same man in white, this time with another figure dressed in black. Both of them were hammering on the SUV's windows with unnatural force. Furious, he flung the door open, ready to fight, but the two figures instantly disappeared again. Now terrified, he ran over to wake his buddy in the other SUV. His friend looked at him, confused, and said he hadn't heard or seen a thing. The two of them, pale with fear, decided not to stay there another minute. They drove until they found the glow of a gas station and parked under the bright lights, too shaken to sleep. Eventually they gave up trying and sat in the all-night diner next door until dawn. Morning came, and with daylight their nerves settled. But when they went back to leave, one of them realized he'd locked his keys inside the SUV. No matter what he tried, rocks, tools, even a borrowed hammer, the rear window wouldn't break. Then his friend casually tapped the glass twice with a heavy rock, and on the third swing it shattered like normal. Later that day, the two vehicles got separated. The friend without the rear window drove slower, while the other sped ahead. Suddenly, the first SUV veered off what was supposed to be a straight stretch of highway and tumbled down a shallow ravine. By some miracle, the car landed upside down on a narrow ledge, just a few yards below the road. Instead of plunging into the valley, shaking, he swore, "I know that was a straight road. I saw it myself." A few minutes later, the second driver returned, helping him out of the wreck. Later, I asked him how he knew to turn back, since they had no cell signal in that remote area. His answer chilled me. "I heard him calling my name, loud and clear. But there's no way a human voice could carry that far across the open highway, especially over the sound of two idling engines." That's why I believe it wasn't just fatigue or coincidence. Some places hold on to things we don't understand. Maybe that lonely dirt pullout wasn't just an ordinary place to stop. About 5 years ago, my dad was driving my mom home from the city in our car. It was around 4 in the afternoon, the highway nearly empty. Everything was normal until my mom suddenly leaned over and whispered urgently, "Slow down. Please." There's an old man walking straight toward us. My dad squinted at the long stretch of empty road ahead. Nothing. He kept driving. Less than a minute later, my mom screamed, grabbing the steering wheel, "Why aren't you stopping? He's right in front of us." The car lurched violently into the opposite lane, the speed spiking. My dad fought the wheel, slammed the brakes, and a massive bus screeched to a halt just feet away from their bumper. Passengers shot out of their seats, the driver and his assistant pale as chalk. The bus driver jumped out, trembling. "You two were driving straight, and then you just swerved into my lane." Jesus, if I hadn't slowed down, we'd all be dead right now. My dad apologized profusely, then asked him desperately, "Did you see an old man walking on the road?" The driver shook his head, certain. "No, there was nobody, just the two of you." My dad turned on my mom, furious. "Look for yourself. The road's empty. The driver didn't see anyone. I didn't see anyone. But you did. You nearly killed us grabbing the wheel like that." But my mom's voice was still trembling, insistent. "I saw him. An old man with a sad face, in worn-out pajamas, an undershirt underneath, an old faded cap, walking with a cane right toward us. He was less than 6 feet away when I pulled you." They fought about it for a week. My dad swore it was her imagination. But to this day, my mom swears she saw him as clearly as she sees me. In our family, the story stuck. Some believe it wasn't a living person at all, but something else. Something that wanted a crash. And the only reason my parents survived was sheer luck or grace.